And on that, I'm going to pass on to our first speaker of the day. We hope this is all going to work because we're doing this virtually in various parts of the world. So it should, there we are. It's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Bain, who is an assistant professor of neurology and pediatrics, and she tells me is working this weekend. So amazingly dedicated, and is actually one of our fabulous collaborators on our recent paper that's describing an expanded cohort of patients. So Jennifer will introduce the Simon Searchlight International Research Program, outline how families can join the study, and explain how sharing families' valuable information experiences in this registry can lead to discoveries improving the lives of people with rare genetic neurodevelopmental conditions. And I can see your slides perfectly. Oh, slightly. It's just flipping between speaker view and...
I'm trying to get it.
That looks, oh, that was good.
Yeah. Here we go. Give me one sec. Let me just try this.
No worries. There's probably some awful early time.
Oh no, it's not that early. I'm going in a minute, but let's see if we can do this. I wanted to try to share, but it's not going to let me do that. So that's okay. We're just going to do it this way. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jennifer Bain, and it's really a pleasure to be here. I'm a practicing child neurologist at Columbia University, and I care for a family who's affected by this disorder. So I'm really appreciative to be here. And I think that video was perfect to kind of set up what I'm going to talk about. Do you see the comment that said subtitles aren't currently available?
Yeah, we see.
How do I get rid of that? That, right? After 2 years. Okay. So thank you so much for having me here. This is really wonderful. I commend you on doing this. I'm presenting for Simon Searchlight. However, I am a clinical physician who practices child neurology. And so I really wanted to talk about Simon Searchlight and how it could be used as a research tool here, really getting parents and families being the integral members of research. Because as you see, it really is about the priorities of individuals. You have clinicians and families, you have researchers over here. We really need to make sure that we're talking very closely. Simon Searchlight is an international research program. Its goal is to accelerate science and improve the lives of people with rare genetic neurodevelopmental disorders like CLCN4. And it started over a decade ago, really with only one genetic disorder, but it's expanded, as you can see, to over 100 different monogenic disorders, as well as copy number variants. And so it's been a very successful program and a very well-sustained program with a lot of great participation from researchers as well as families. And luckily, it has been expanded internationally, which has gone successfully well in the setting of the pandemic, as well as just really engaging the rare disease community, which is international. Luckily, Simon Searchlight has continued to expand its availability for consenting and enrolling individuals in different languages, such as English, Spanish, French, and there are more that continue to happen, which is wonderful. And so really the point of all this is to say that we have families over here, we have the researchers over here, and we want to make sure that all the information that families are providing to clinicians and researchers who are starting case series and larger cohorts really is important and is good information. And you have the ability to collect information in a high quality way. So we're collecting the same information from the same individuals from around the world over time by qualified researchers. And it involves both collecting detailed medical and behavioral histories from families. By the way, families don't need to be referred by a researcher or a clinician. They can sign up themselves. And so this really is putting the family group forward to saying, share this information, share this resource with your families. You go online and you sign up. What Simon Searchlight does is collects all of that information from all that people, kind of puts it all together, has it available as raw data, and then gives it back to both that family and then also the research community. And Simon Searchlight really does aim to connect participants and researchers from around the world and promote a better understanding overall of what that disorder is. It's important, number one, to recognize that this information really is needed to collect longitudinally. And you need that data in order to think about those clinical trials we were just hearing about, and thinking about what are the important qualities and priorities that are clinically meaningful to families. We can't have researchers and industry creating projects and creating clinical trials without the people who it actually matters for. And so I think this is a great schematic. I'm not sure if Simon's meant to do this, but to me, it really is patient-centered, right? The patients are in the middle. It comes from them, right? We want to understand what happens to you over time. We want to make this feasible. We don't want you to have to travel to one of 2 research sites in totally different locations, and maybe you have to pay yourself to do that, but maybe collect that information in a scalable fashion so we can get more than just single sites where we know it's difficult to go and to travel with your family financially, emotionally, logistically. We all have work, we all have jobs. So being able to really collect meaningful data in your own time, in your own home, to me is so important. And that's speaking as a working mom who has a couple hours on the weekend to fill in some questionnaires from schools, et cetera. And really, again, the data that's being collected from Simon's Searchlight is standardized, validated, sensitive measures that are being used in other clinical trials, and really neat, they're also being used for schools and for families as well. So here are some of the examples of the data that's collected about that individual with the genetic change. So on the left, you can see the X's here. The online surveys that are done are really common. They are the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scales, there are social responsiveness scales, quality of life surveys, and really tailoring it towards what that group is interested in doing. And they do collect medical and developmental and medication updates every year as well. And first and foremost, Simon's Searchlight will confirm and clarify that that individual does have the genetic disorder that is of interest. Importantly, this year, we don't have enough people. If we had 1 or 2 people, we don't want to share back that 1 or 2 people, because then we would give away who that is. So really, it is a matter of getting 5 or more individuals' data to put in together, really start synthesizing that and giving it back to the community in a safe, de-identified way. And so hopefully I can come back next year and present some data back from sharing from your group. So one of the great things is that not only can this information be shared back to your group and to your community, it also can be personalized. So you can utilize the scales and the reports that you already have filled out. We know that these reports take time and energy and effort. And so we ask parents to fill out a Vineland, which can take a little bit of time. However, that information will be given back to that individual. And then this information, again, will be shared back on the specific gene page, the LCN4 gene page, right online. So you can see that ongoing update. And then at conferences such as this and other meetings, we will present back that data. And then Paul Wang, in just a few minutes, Dr. Wang's going to talk about the researcher side of things. And once we kind of hand off that information, what happens when researchers want to collect that information. And not only this, your participation in research really is what guides our knowledge of the disorder. And in the office, I see a patient, we get a diagnosis and they say, what do we know about this? I say, well, there's 3 other people with this specific disorder. And on the top here is actually one that I also was participating in. And it said there were 6 other people in this disorder and in the world. And now since then, we've really engaged the community. We're able to provide and work towards a reviews article, which you already have, which is wonderful. And now we have over 100 people just a few years later. So it's your participation that really drives this forward and really will continue to contribute to the knowledge that we do know. I very often hear as a clinician, that's not my kid that's being reported in the literature. But really, Simon's wants to hear the good. They want to hear the bad. They want to hear the ugly. They want to know what's going on. So it's a good representation to share with other professionals and families affected by disorders. Moreover, if a researcher is particularly interested, for example, in CLCN4, and they say, you know what, I'm really interested in this specific aspect that I think is really important and critical to this disorder, they can actually propose a specific survey or a specific targeted survey to go right towards the group of individuals that they're targeting. So researchers can recruit for other research studies, but if they are particularly interested in one specific area, they can participate in a program called Research Match, where they propose a specific study. And we can help facilitate that. The power of Simon Searchlight also is not only are we studying your genetic disease or disorder, we also have the ability to collect that information across different genes. And so we will continue to condense our information, but then because we've collected the same information from other genetic disorders, perhaps we can make comparisons between different genes, related genes, and gene groups. So just in general, what do you have to do? Because that's parents want to know. You sign up online, you go on the internet. The first really important thing is to provide the genetic lab. So you provide your genetic lab report, and that will be confirmed. And so in this case, we have 22 people who have signed up online from CLCN4, which is amazing. Good job, guys. High five. And 12 people have already submitted their genetic report. So we're already starting to move the numbers forward. However, we're not just there yet, because only 3 have really been able to share that medical history. So we got to get that number up a little bit higher. 9 are starting to fill out the surveys. We do have 3 individuals who've provided blood samples, which Dr. Wang is going to talk about in a few minutes. And then we are going to keep asking you every year to participate. Importantly, this is an IRB or ethics approved study, and it's a very large team. And so this is the very large team. Dr. Wendy Chung in the center is the private principal investigator of the study. And we have genetic counselors and other researchers from across institutions at Simons, as well as other academic institutions. And so I'm going to pass it off and stop screen sharing. Stop share.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jennifer. And then hopefully, and you know, just reflecting on the initial video that we saw where immune, you know, I've not been getting that from clinicians that there were concerns with immune function. So, you know, it's that kind of thing that, you know, often what we ask as clinicians and record down may not actually be the most important things for families. So super interesting. And now we're going to hand over to Paul. I can see Paul and he's sharing his screen beautifully. And Paul is a developmental behavioral pediatrician and deputy director for clinical research on the Simons Foundation. So incredibly grateful for you joining us today, Paul. And we can see your slides.
Great, and I will put it into slide.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you, Jennifer, for describing Searchlight so very nicely. I'm just going to expand on that a bit by providing the larger context of the work that SFARI does, that we do to try to help the research community and the patient community as well in relation to autism and genetic disorders such as CLCN4. I appreciate that many in the audience may already be aware of what I'm going to describe, but for those who are not, I hope this will be helpful. And I just want to thank as well the rest of the Simons team whose work I'll really be describing, especially Jennifer Trinego, who's our primary contact to the Searchlight communities. So Simons Searchlight, which Dr. Bain described, is really a program within SFARI, the Simons Foundation Autism Research Initiative. And although the word autism is in our name, our focus is not exclusively on patients with autism, but very much on those who have genetic conditions such as CLCN4 that have been associated with autism. And SFARI itself is part of the larger Simons Foundation, which is broadly dedicated to promoting research in math and science. And autism and related conditions are just a part of that. So within SFARI, we do have, and I'm trying to get my pointer here. Here we go, laser pointer. We have the Simons Searchlight program, which Dr. Bain just described. We have a very, very large program called SPARK, which recruits individuals with autism diagnoses, recruits them primarily online, although there are also a number of centers across the United States where families can sign up in person. All of those families are offered genetic sequencing through saliva samples. And in fact, that is how we find very many individuals who have specific genetic diagnoses. They are then invited to participate in Simon's Searchlight. That's not the only point of entry into Simon's Searchlight. We try to make sure that genetic diagnostic labs and geneticists across the country and even more broadly are aware of Simon's Searchlight so that they can refer their patients even if they do not have autism diagnoses. I'm going to speak about our Autism BrainNet program as well today. Our funding programs, that is our grants that we make available to researchers around the world, and then some of the other research resources that we have as well. So for those who aren't aware, we run a very large number of competitive grant programs every year. We have general RFAs for a wide variety of investigator-initiated ideas, and then we have also what we call targeted RFAs coming up soon. So please look for the announcement on our website, or if you're on our mailing list, probably an announcement within the next 1 or 2 months about the 2022 version of our Genomics of ASD Pathways to Genetic Therapies RFA. Again, it says autism, but it's not restricted only to autism. I'm going to minimize my view of everybody so that I can having trouble there. Anyway, grants here are awarded to promote the understanding of the molecular and cellular correlates of genetic risk, i.e. of genetic variants that are associated with ASD and NDDs, and also to provide a foundation for the development of genetic therapies or gene targeting therapies in the future. Last year, these awards were for $200,000 to $400,000 US, I believe, for a maximum of 3 years. We'll be adjusting the funding level slightly this year. That will be in the announcement that's forthcoming. So that will be coming up. We've already closed 2 RFAs for this year, but they'll certainly be repeated next year again in 2023, what we call our pilot award. And this is the all-comer investigator-initiated ideas. You see the smaller budget limit there because these are really for initial pilot, high risk, high reward ideas. We want proposals that are high risk, that are new ideas that are truly novel. And that is why we really do call it a pilot award. It is very much our aim to differentiate ourselves. For example, from NIH, we want to be riskier. And then we also have what we call the Bridge to Independence Award, which is provided to young or junior researchers who are actually postdoctoral fellows at the time of the application. They take the award with them to their first faculty position. So we believe that it helps their competitiveness as they search for faculty positions. And we hope, of course, that it will anchor them in research that we care about, that I know everybody listening to me today cares about, in relation to autism and genetically based NDDs. I will also say, since this is an international audience, apply soon because a US dollar will never be worth so much to you in other countries as they are today. So I'll spend the rest of my time here just talking about the other resources that we make available to the community of researchers, focusing especially on the IPSC resource and then Autism BrainNet. You heard a lot about IPSCs yesterday from Dr. Buttermore, from Dr. Han as well. I won't go over what IPSCs are. Many of you work with IPSCs. I do not. I'm originally a clinician, a developmental pediatrician. In partnership with the Nancy Lurie Marks Family Foundation, the New York Stem Cell Foundation, and a company called Sampled, we are creating lines of IPSCs that from biospecimen donations from patients, so patient-derived IPSCs. And I'm happy to tell you in particular that there are 3 lines that are in process and that we hope we can make available within, let's say, approximately 9 months. My colleague, Julia Summer, who runs this program, said, Paul, don't give them a firm deadline because there can, of course, be unanticipated delays in creating the lines and doing the QA, of course, which we know is so important. But the 3 lines are listed here. We heard a lot about the 555 allovaline variant, a recurrent variant that has been found in many individuals in the CLC and 4 community. So that is one of the lines that is being created. And then also you see the other 2 lines that are being created. If I remember correctly from if I looked at the slides carefully enough from Dr. Kalshor's talk yesterday, I think all of these were de novo variants that have been found in women and girls in the CLCN4 community. So we are creating these lines in partnership with the other organizations listed, and then we provide them by application to interested researchers, really at just the nominal fee for defrosting things, getting them shipped to you through an application process, which I will describe on a later slide. Autism BrainNet, and I'm sorry, I had the misimpression that they were families who would be listening in today as well, but I understand now it's really primarily researchers. Autism BrainNet is a brain bank.
We do have
it
some
operates.
families.
Oh, thank you. So this is a sensitive topic, of course, and we try to treat the donor families with the utmost respect and compassion through this entire process. But we know how valuable it can be to study brain tissue from actual patients with CLCN4. Enormous value, of course, we know in rodent models and iPSC and zebrafish models, etc., but no substitute for human brain tissue. So we have this active program to collect, to manage, to process, and then to distribute again through an application process brain tissue to interested and qualified researchers who are vetted by a peer review process. We all understand how important it is to obtain these donations as quickly as possible after somebody passes. And so the geographic scope here is limited to the countries that you see listed there. United States, there is a what we call a node in the United Kingdom to handle these donations as well. Of course, things go much more smoothly if families have pre-registered, and we work to inform families about this program. Of course, we're happy to work with families who have an individual who's perfectly healthy. We're not ambulance chasers, if you will, an expression I don't know if you use elsewhere in the where you speak the English language. But we have contact information down here at the bottom for those who might be interested in participating in this program. The large majority of donations that we receive are from individuals who have idiopathic autism with no known genetic etiology, but we do also have a fair number of brains that have been donated from families with specific genetic diagnoses, although not CLCN4 at this point. SFARI base is the system, the online computer-based system, online portal that we use to handle requests for various kinds of data or specimens. So I'll simply mention it here. You can find basically everything that I've been talking about on our website. You can start at safari.org, SFARI.org. There will be a link there to SFARI base. Individuals who are requesting data or specimens do need to establish an account and then go through the whole process that the site leads you through. And I'll just end it there, again, with contact information for Searchlight, with the website for SFARI base as well, and an invitation to please contact us if we can try to answer any other questions.